Year 1944. The Third Reich's war machine is grinding to a complete halt, not because they lack bullets, nor because they lack pilots, not even because they lack aircraft. It stops because they lack the most basic thing of all, oil. Allied bombers have reduced the synthetic fuel refineries to smoking piles of rubble. On Luftwaffe airfields across Germany, the world's most advanced jets, the Me-262s sit grounded completely useless with bone-dry tanks, while thousands upon thousands of B-17 bombers darken Germany's skies every single day. In the midst of this complete desperation, in a smoke-filled office in Vienna, a legendary engineer slams his fist on the table and proposes a solution that sounds like absolute complete madness. He says he can build a fighter aircraft capable of flying twice the speed of sound. He says he can do it without using a single drop of gasoline, and most incredible of all, he says he's going to power his supersonic engine with the only thing Germany has in abundance: coal stones pulled straight from the earth. Welcome to the story of the Lippisch P.13a, probably the strangest, most radical and most desperate design of the entire Second World War. An aircraft that looks like a NASA spacecraft from the 1980s, but was designed to run burning the exact same fuel as a 19th century steam locomotive. Today we're going to discover how the hell they intended to fly at Mach 2 with a flying stove, and how this wooden triangle ended up inspiring the very fighters that defended the United States during the Cold War. To understand this crazy project, first we need to understand the mind of its creator, Dr. Alexander Lippisch. This man wasn't a normal engineer at all. He was the father of the Me-163 Comet, the famous suicide rocket we've already discussed extensively on the channel. Lippisch was obsessed with exactly two things: extreme speed and pure geometric shapes. While other designers kept putting straight wings and traditional tails on their aircraft, Lippisch looked straight to the future. He knew that to break the sound barrier, conventional wings wouldn't work at all. They created far too much drag. His solution was radical: eliminate the wings and tail completely and fuse everything into one single perfect shape: the triangle, the delta wing. The P-13a design was so futuristic that if you see it today in a 3D render, you'd swear it's a current secret prototype. It had absolutely no horizontal stabilizers. The pilot didn't sit in a normal cockpit, but embedded deep inside the large vertical tail fin with panoramic vision. The entire aircraft was one large air duct designed to cut through the sky like an arrowhead. But aerodynamics wasn't the main problem at all. The problem was fuel. The Air Ministry demanded an interceptor, but couldn't provide any gasoline whatsoever. So Lippisch proposed the completely unthinkable: a ramjet engine powered by coal dust. The concept sounds like a complete joke, but the engineering behind it was absolutely fascinating and terrifyingly complex. The ramjet is a very simple engine in concept: a tube where air enters under pressure from speed. It mixes with fuel, explodes violently and exits behind, pushing the aircraft forward. But how do you inject solid coal into a jet engine? You can't just shovel coal like on the Titanic. Lippisch designed a combustion chamber that rotated continuously. Imagine a round wire mesh basket located right in the middle of the fuselage, spinning constantly on a vertical axis at 60 revolutions per minute. The loading process was a complete logistical nightmare in itself. It wasn't anything like filling a normal fighter's tank. Ground mechanics had to prepare a very precise mixture of lignite, a cheap and abundant brown coal crushed into many different sizes, from fine powder to small stones. This entire mixture had to be manually loaded into the wire basket through hatches in the fuselage. It was a dirty, slow and extremely dangerous process. A single static spark during coal dust loading could trigger a massive explosion that would blow up the aircraft and entire ground crew before even taking off. Once the 800 kilograms of coal were loaded, the aircraft closed, becoming a ticking time bomb of solid fuel. For takeoff, since the ramjet doesn't work while sitting stationary, the aircraft needed to be launched with auxiliary rockets or towed into the air. Once airborne and at high speed, an initial gas burner ignited below the basket. The airstream entering through the nose passed straight through the rotating basket, ripped off the burning coal particles, and created continuous, extremely high temperature combustion. Basically, Lippisch had designed a high-tech flying stove capable of generating thousands of pounds of thrust. Theory said this system could keep the aircraft flying for 45 minutes straight, at speeds exceeding 2,000 kilometers per hour, but there was a very dark side to this design. The aircraft had no conventional firing weapons whatsoever. Lippisch's original idea was to use the P-13a as a ram. Yes, you heard that right, a supersonic ram. The wing edges would be heavily reinforced with heavy steel. The tactic consisted of launching at Mach 2 directly against the Allied bomber formation and physically crashing into the tails or wings of B-17s, cutting them like a giant guillotine. The aircraft was so robust it could theoretically survive the impact, but if not, the pilot had to jump immediately. And this is exactly where the plan becomes completely suicidal. Imagine the scene clearly. You've just crashed into a bomber at 2,000 kilometers per hour. Your aircraft is severely damaged, spinning completely out of control. You have to open the cockpit and jump right in the middle of a supersonic airstream. In 1945, modern ejection seats that work at that speed didn't exist at all. Trying to jump from that aircraft at Mach 2 would have been an instant death sentence. The sheer air force would have dismembered the pilot before he could even open the parachute. It was, in essence, a reusable missile piloted by a man sitting on top of a ton of burning coal with a one-way ticket. Many will ask, did this complete madness ever fly? The answer is a yes, but no. The supersonic coal aircraft was never completed before the war ended in May 1945, but the aerodynamic design was actually built. Students from the universities of Munich and Darmstadt under Lippisch's direct direction built a full-scale glider called DM-1 to test whether that triangle shape could actually fly at low speed without crashing. The DM-1 story is like a Hollywood movie. They built it almost secretly in a hidden hangar using cheap wood, glue and fabric. When General Patton's troops, the United States Third Army, invaded the area in 1945, they encountered something they absolutely couldn't believe. In the midst of defeat's complete chaos was a white glider with a perfect triangular shape that seemed to have landed straight from the year 2000. American soldiers who had never seen a pure delta wing before were completely blown away. There are incredible historical photos of this exact moment, showing American infantry soldiers with their steel helmets and rifles mounted on top of the futuristic Nazi glider's wings, posing and laughing, having absolutely no idea they were sitting on military aviation's entire future. Immediately, American intelligence through Operation Paperclip ordered that glider protected at all costs. In fact, they were so incredibly impressed they ordered the captured German engineers themselves to finish building it under military surveillance. Once finished, the DM-1 didn't fly in Germany at all. It was packed in a giant box and sent directly to the United States, to NACA Laboratories, what we know today as NASA. And this is exactly where this story of coal and complete desperation changes aviation history forever. When American engineers put the DM-1 in their giant wind tunnels at Langley, they discovered something absolutely amazing. Lippisch's triangular shape generated special air vortices that gave it incredible stability at very high speeds. It was the exact secret they were looking for their own jets. The data obtained from this strange wooden Nazi glider was transferred directly to an American company called Convair. If you look at photos of the American XF-92 prototype, or the famous F-102 Delta Dagger and F-106 Delta Dart fighters that defended the United States during the entire Cold War, you'll see they're direct children of the Lippisch P.13a, the exact same delta wing, the same giant vertical fin. The only real difference is that the Americans, who did have oil in abundance, put a normal jet engine on it instead of the coal basket. The P.13a is perhaps the very best example of late-war German engineering, a fascinating mixture of visionary genius and absolute logistical madness. On one hand, they invented the aerodynamic shape that would define future fighters for decades. On the other hand, they tried to propel it with the most archaic and dirty fuel possible. It was a desperate attempt to jump into the space age using Industrial Revolution technology. It's very hard to know what would have happened if they had 6 more months. Would the coal engine have actually worked? It probably would have been an absolute maintenance nightmare with ash clogging the nozzles and extreme heat melting the fuselage. But the simple idea that someone in the middle of the ruins of 1944 had the audacity to design a supersonic coal fighter clearly shows us how far human ingenuity can go when caught between a rock and a hard place. And now, armchair pilots, I throw you the question of the day. I want to see the debate in the comments section. If you were in the shoes of a test pilot in 1945 and given a choice between climbing into this coal-loaded P-13A or the acid-loaded Comet rocket, which would you choose?